just going to push back on something he said. People seem to have forgotten that this kid was fine. No, they forgot. They literally benched this kid, and it's fine. They lost faith in him, and that's fine. But they have turned the page. They said, we have him for a reason. We believe in his skill set. And yesterday, being in that locker room, it was not a funeral. It was not, this is the end of the world. Our season's over. It is, we are devastated that Aaron's not here. But we're excited for Zach Wilson. We're excited that he has this opportunity. We thought he would have time to sit and watch Aaron Rodgers, but guess what? His time is now, and we see his swagger back. Like, this kid feels confident. I think the key for them is maintaining that confidence, because talent is not the kid's issue. It's really what's in between his ears and how he feels about himself.
There's a reality, though, that this is by far the best offensive 1 through 11 group that he's going to play with since he's become a Jet.
Yeah.
This is the right decision for the New York Jets to move forward with him. The season is absolutely not over. Maybe the realistic long-term goal is adjusted, and they can absolutely win this weekend, okay? The challenge is going to be this. Best case scenario. You want to know what the best case scenario is for the Jets? You guys are going to yell at me when that he becomes Carson Wentz. That's the best case scenario. Carson Wood, hear me out. I'm dead serious with this. 2 years ago, dead serious with this. 2 years ago, Carson Wentz was 27 touchdowns, 7 picks. They're 28-7. And there's going to be highs. There's going to have 2 or 3 game stretches where you're going, oh my gosh, this guy plays like a top 10 quarterback. And then there's going to be 6 quarter stretches where you go, what on earth are you doing? That's the best case scenario. And they can win a lot of games this year. They can win a lot of games this year in that type of situation. That's going to be the challenge for the Jets. They crossed their fingers. Oh, my gosh, he is kind of what we had thought he was going to be when we took him number 2 overall.
Carson Wentz is out of the league.
I would. That did not. You thought that was going to make Greeny feel better?
I'm not saying Carson Wentz right now. But Carson Wentz, the player on the field, indifferent of like the personality in the locker room, whatever, on the field, Carson Wentz was a tremendous talent. And there were highs that you set. He was in the MVP. We know that. Again, 2 years ago in the 2021 season, he led the Colts to 28 touchdowns and 7 picks.
Right.
Really good defense in Indy, right?
Yeah.
Good run game in Indy. And at the end, the last 2 games of the year fell apart. But when he had his highs, you're sitting there going, ooh, it's there.
Here's the but let me ask you one thing, though. Because you said something interesting in our meeting this morning. And I feel like you're saying it again now in a different way. Many people will look at the Jets and say they've got a great defense. They've got great skill position players. They can run the football. What they need is a game manager at quarterback.
That's not who he is,
That's not who he is.
You're not going to make him in 4 or 5 days a game manager. What they need to do is get Zach Wilson to take singles. If we just took... For some reason, like, people are glossing over the fact that they beat the team that over the last 2 or 3 years won the division, ran the division, was a Super Bowl favorite, and right now sits as a very much so still Super Bowl favorite. Now, was it because Zach Wilson balled? No, but this is the formula. This is the reality that the Jets defense was the number 4 defense in the NFL last year and didn't take the ball away. If they take the ball away, and Zach Wilson will hit singles, and what I mean by that is, dude, it's not... Being cool doesn't win in the NFL at quarterback. Trying to be cool, and that's what I'm going to break down a little bit later. Being cool don't win, okay? Take singles, take walks. That's all that's going to be needed to do.
But you're saying he can't do that.
He's capable. Oh, anybody is capable.
No. The mentality of, hey, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to try to. You see the way Zach plays.
Yes.
It is similar, not the same, but it's similar to Josh Allen. And I will try to do more than I need to.
Sure.
Is Zach able to rein it in and say, let me hit this bunt single?
Well, I've seen some of it in the preseason, though. I've seen Zach Wilson take a check down on 3rd and long and not try to force the issue, something I've seen in the past. I've seen him throw the football out of bounds. So I did see a little bit of growth in those regards when it came to Zach Wilson. Now it's the regular season.
Exactly.
Are you going to be able to do that on a consistent basis?
I need to hear what was behind that face. See what was
No, I'm just speaking for, as far as Zach is concerned. Here's what is encouraging for me coming out of Monday night and moving forward was the fact, first of all, the whole offseason and everything going to that game was built around Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. And for a guy to be thrusted into that position, I thought he acquitted himself very well in that game. There were some throws in that game. And anyone who's watched Zach Greeny, we've watched Zach now since he's, 3 years or whatever. The one thing that Zach really struggled with the most was the layups.
Yeah.
There were so many times where the ball would just hit the ground.
Guide the ball.
Right. There were so many times throughout his career where he would throw the ball and the easy things, the things that, guys just do on a regular basis, the ball would be in the ground. He was making throws. It's like, okay, that's progress for Zach right there. That is absolute progress. Now, I think it's going to be incumbent on the coaching staff, and this is where Aaron Rodgers can come in too. Build this thing to his skill set. Build this thing to his skill set, and they got the pieces around him to do that.
I think it's this. So this offense, like, how do they get the offense built around Zach to play at a really good level? Number one, they ran for 172 yards on Monday night.
Yeah.
This offensive line, run game-wise, run block-wise, is going to be a good offensive line. Stay healthy. So it is going to be putting multiple tight ends on the field, not just 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends. I think we're going to see a lot of one back, three tight ends. Jeremy Ruckert was fantastic in the run game. Yeah. So a little bit more of that. I think number two, it's getting the wide receivers. Garrett Wilson should have 200 targets this year, 200, because he's that dynamic of a player. And then it's building an understanding of, and this sounds a little bit like duh, Dan, Zach Wilson should not go into every game thinking, how do I win the game? Zach Wilson's mindset does have to be, how do I not lose this game? Right. The reality is this. Under Robert Saleh, they're going to be like, I think since the start of last year, when they win the turnover battle, they're like 8-1 or something, 9-1. That is proof right there. And you hear me say this all the time. You can't be great at that position in the league if you're not aggressive with the football, if you don't put it in harm's way. They don't need Zach to be great. Okay, so it is a little bit of, we do have to play with a little bit of, I'm going to protect the ball. He's got to get settled to the state of, I'm going to trust the timing of the pass game a little bit more. Now, this is his 6th year in the NFL. I don't believe that has been a mandate in the last 5 years for him. It is going to take time. Is he capable of it? Absolutely. But trusting the timing of the pass game is really where this offense needs to take their next big step.
Well, let's just quickly, you're talking about traditional quarterback stuff. Lamar Jackson has done all these things that have been as spectacular as anyone we've ever seen. But when you see, I mean, if you're talking about a slant that needs to come out that quickly, we're talking about super traditional, basic,
like on that first play, Greeny, you want to see him take a little bit of a longer drop because it's going to take time for those two routes to develop. And when he takes that quicker drop, his body is telling him, and Harry knows this, and Woody knows, his eyes are telling him, okay, I'm ready to move. And then the slant, like this one, Greeny, he's ready to throw the ball right now body-wise. He's staring those guys. Those guys are 2 yards downfield. So now he's saying, oh, I got to get to number 2 or 3 or 4 in the progression. And by the time he comes back, that's when those guys get open. And Greeny, to your point, that slant route, it's now versus man coverage. Right. Or it's going to talk to Odell and being like, I thought you were going to take more time, and Odell's going, no, I'm going to win right now versus man.
And talk to me as a receiver.
And that's the communication between quarterback and wide receiver. And something that's different for Lamar Jackson, last year in 11 personnel, they was in that 12% of the time. Yeah. This year for game 1, per Himbo, thank you, Himbo, for that stat, they were in 11 personnel 45% of the time.
One back, one tight end.
Exactly. One back, one tight end, 3 wide receivers. So that's different as well when you're looking at Lamar Jackson, who's been in that offense where they have the 1 back, 2 tight ends, and 2 receivers on the field majority of the time.
What do you see? I mean, you tell me. Is this something that takes time? I mean, what is your perspective on what we're seeing from that offense? It's 1 week in.
I always say, like defense is always ahead of offense early on in the season. It's just a fact. And the nuances that Dan was talking about as far as the passing game, between the relationship between the quarterback and receiver, those things aren't going to just start clicking right off the top. These are things where you have to have constant communication, whether it be on the sideline, in practice, to get those things cleaned up.
It's a new offense. It is a new receiver in Odell. Yeah. It is a rookie receiver in Zay Flowers. It is no Mark Andrews, which is obviously has long been his security blanket, and he didn't play in week 1. A lot of those things added up together. What do you sense of it, Kmart?
So for me, this is a Ravens team that I was high on. We did the show last week. I think that I picked them to win the Super Bowl. My biggest concern for them is injuries right now. Offensively, though, and that's what's scary. It's week 1. To your point, they need time to gel. But this team, this offense I was excited about. On defense, the amount of injuries that they have, that is what concerns me because I think the offense was going to be ahead of the defense.
And the J.K. Dobbins injury, again, devastating.
It's very devastating.
Every year it feels like that team gets beat up. Go ahead, Danny.
The thing is this. So this takes time for an offense. Woody knows this. Offensive linemen think that the ball's coming out at a certain time as well. We saw that with the Aaron Rodgers situation and Dwayne Brown.
Yeah.
We saw that on that runaround slant. If the reality is this, if this becomes a part of Lamar's game, if he gets to that point where he's going to trust it and he gets on the same page, I understand the J.K. Dobbins injury isn't great. This offense is going to be unstoppable if they get that. Now, Ronnie Stanley's got to get healthy at left tackle, and their center's got to be healthy. But if that becomes a part, and I keep saying if, I absolutely believe it's going to. Because it's just going to take reps in game for them doing it.
And then me or you were talking off camera about, you know, something as simple as when they're in a 3-by-1 set, right? And you got the single wide receiver, and that safety comes from depth on a blitz.
Right.
A simple side adjust, right? If you're out wide, it's a simple 3-step slant. Boom. Now you're beat.
And how much that has been a part of their past? Odell might have done it. Maybe Lamar didn't. The offensive line may have not been a part of it. How much freedom does he have? We've heard that all offseason, right? Lamar's got control at the line of scrimmage. But until you're doing it in 6 seconds in a game and you're really feeling it and experiencing it, it's just going. And I remember Graziano kind of saying this a little bit in the offseason that he thought it was going to take time. I think the biggest focus in Baltimore is getting that trust back between the quarterback and the play caller and the receiver, that the timing is going to be the most important factor because then the creative plays will present themselves.
The things that you saw, worried or not worried? Would you say these are things that are easily solvable, or these are things you think are going to be a problem all year?
No, I think these things are easily solvable. I mean, we're talking about, essentially what we're talking about is timing, right? You're talking about the timing between, you know, between the drop and the quarterback as it relates to the receiver's routes. Like
and
those,
the offensive line.
And the offensive line. Getting those two guys back healthy will be good.
And I turn to my AFC North insider here, and that's Kimberly Martin. The good news for Baltimore is, while it wasn't spectacular, they won. At Cincinnati, that's a bad loss. The Steelers, that's a very alarming loss. So at least the good news for the Ravens is they can build off this with a win.
Oh, 1,000%. Listen, I think this is the toughest division in the NFL, but I think the Ravens feel good about where they're at. Same way with the Eagles. Not good wins, but ultimately a win, and that's what you want starting the season.
The last thing I'll say is this. After week 1, Zay Flowers very much should become the integral part of their pass.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.